In essence, we've watched Saudi Arabia now be protected by two of the three largest nuclear arsenals on the planet. We've watched them join the BRICS New Development Bank and tell everyone in Davos that they are open to taking other currencies for oil. I have connected the dots for over 3 years saying this will happen. And it freaks me out how fast it is happening. But nothing like what I saw yesterday. And I will read the headline. UAE, the United Arab Emirates, officially stops using dollars for oil trades. Well, they just joined the BRICS too, by the way. They were formally admitted into the BRICS in August. The United Arab Emirates is eyeing potential oil and gas deals with up to 15 countries, including China, Russia, Egypt, all of whom are BRICS members and advocates of the continued de-dollarization. When you talk about a shot across the bow, this is as big as it gets. Now, the only thing that would be bigger than that is when this is followed up by Saudi Arabia and the remaining OPEC countries who say, yeah, look, you guys are going green. Thanks for the memories. We're going a different direction. When you put all of these groups together, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Union, and by the way, the president of Belarus has just called a formal meeting that the Eurasian Economic Union and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization should join BRICS. I've been saying they're going to do that for 3 years. They're all the same countries. But now there's a formal meeting in the works for that to happen. But when you put them all together with the Belt Road, which in and of itself is 75% of human population, you're talking the majority of human population. You're talking almost 80% of all the global oil supply, 70+% of all the global natural gas supply, the majority of all the rare earth metals, the majority of all the precious metals, and it's a situation that is not ending. I'll take a few more pieces on this, and we'll talk silver. China and Saudi Arabia just signed a very large, about an $8 billion swap agreement. A swap agreement basically says, well, we'll trade with each other in each other's currencies rather than what everyone has always done, and that is to first go into dollars. The high interest rates of the dollar, the cost of converting, and being in the SWIFT system, which we have seen already two of the BRICS members, Iran and Russia, be kicked out of SWIFT, have their assets frozen. These countries are doing it amongst one another at a better rate. You don't have to convert to dollars, and in a way that is very advantageous for these countries. And at the same time, they sidestep the SWIFT system. So when you see China and Saudi Arabia striking deals like this, it is just more and more of what I call logarithmic decay. Little by little, by little, by little, by little, by little, and bang, all at once. It's like taking an axe and chopping a big oak tree. The first 50 chops don't do crap. You don't even see a dent in the tree. Maybe it takes 5,000 chops before it falls, but eventually the all at once happens. A couple of other things to mention. Russia just more or less has inked a deal with Turkey. Turkey was told by the European Union that, no, we don't want you in it. They applied again, and they don't expect to come into the European Union anytime soon. So Turkey more or less said, well, screw you, we're going to join the BRICS. They're also the third largest accumulator of gold this year in 2023. There's no coincidence there, but the deal that they're forging with Russia is establishing a plan for natural gas trading. And Russia wants Turkey to be the hub for all of Europe for natural gas. So this is all being done in local currencies again. So sidestepping the dollar, sidestepping the SWIFT system. Another big deal. You can see the alliances that are being made. Venezuela, in and of themselves, not too much to worry about, right? They do hold 17.5% of the known oil reserves globally. They have formally applied as a full-fledged member to BRICS, as has Pakistan, has fully applied to be a member of BRICS, as has Nigeria. Nigeria is an OPEC country. They're on the Belt Road. If Nigeria joins, along with all the countries that are already there, you are at 80% of the global oil supply and 73% of the natural gas reserves globally. This is nothing to shake a stick at. So I just want people to know that this narrative that I talk about of continued de-dollarization will massively impact all commodities. And as Zoltan Pozsar says, we have entered a period of time that is no longer going to be dominated by opaque debt instruments, but rather by transparency in commodities. And you can see these countries not only are doing this by massively accumulating all the world's commodities, not just gold and silver, but copper and rare earth metals and wheat and soybeans and you name it. If it's a commodity, they're buying it. But at the same time, they're doing so outside the dollar. You look at a massive deal between China and Brazil. Brazil is the second largest exporter of corn in the world. They're now selling it to China for yuan. They're also doing that with soybeans. And for the United States soybean farmers, their sales are down about 60% this year because China is a big buyer of soybeans. They're now buying them from Brazil in local currencies. So keep in mind, there will be a gold-backed common settlement currency that the BRICS come out with probably next year in August. That's what we were told, that they were going to go back to the drawing board after the last August meeting, and the finance ministers were tasked with coming back with a plan to issue a common settlement currency that will be pegged to commodities, most likely gold. But in the meantime, they promised to trade with one another in local currencies, and that is exactly what you see happening. So this is nothing to shake a stick at. When you see the United Arab Emirates say, by the way, we're done taking dollars, it's massive. And it's even bigger when you realize that either later this week or early next week, they're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 or 70 countries coming to the United Arab Emirates to Dubai for this big environmental conference. I think it's interesting to note that the time that they're having half of the world come there for this meeting, they announced we're no longer taking dollars for oil. Little by little by little, chop, 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 chop. When's it? Don't know. But you can tell by something like this, we're getting much closer. So now let's talk metals and whatever else you got on your mind, brother.
Man, a lot of that has to do with metals. And, all of those countries, why would they want to go green? Why would they want that? And that's the scary part is we're poking the bear. Our dollar's worthless. Why in the world wouldn't they do this? And why wouldn't they buy up all the silver for us realistically not be able to go green? I mean, that's also a thing. And
look at India. They just bought another 60 million ounces.
Yeah.
And that was after buying
It's
304 million ounces last year.
It's a win-win. But also, silver right now is doing something interesting. It has gone up substantially over the last week and a half. What do you think it's going to do next?
Most of us, yourself included, who have been watching this for a long time, are waiting for the shoe to drop. It's like getting a dog at the pound who is abused. My parents have one, actually. And even though this dog has seen me 5,000 times, every time I go to pet it, it's waiting to get hit. There's a special place in hell for anyone that would hit a dog, by the way. But I think we're all waiting for the shoe to drop. The thing of it is that the world's exchanges are being bled dry. If you look at the Silver Institute, their latest calculations are all screwy. They're all being reevaluated, and they're changing the numbers.
Because I made a video about that.
Yeah, the silver photalic, I think it's called. I don't even pronounce it right, but it's what's used in solar panels. They revised up tremendously. Vic Sweer did an interesting article or video on it, where showing that the numbers were way off because he took the numbers directly from the solar panel industry, show that they're way off. But I do want to say one other thing. They're saying that we have another massive shortfall this year, right? A deficit again this year of
could be record breaking.
Right. I don't know how many, a couple 200 plus million ounces shortfall. But you and I have both talked about the Pickaxe article, and I can't vouch for its accuracy. I would suspect it is a lot of it. It's all been he cites facts, and I was blown away by it. And the most interesting thing to me about the Silver Institute is that they ignore any military component of silver. They don't have it in there. And I've often said, long before I read John Little's article, and I think he's a hell of a researcher, and the article was compelling. Again, I am not a fact checker in this respect, but the article was compelling, and he cited facts to support his thesis. But his whole thesis is that it's been the military industrial complex that has held down the price of silver in order to create munitions and weapons and submarines and aerospace stuff and airplanes and all of this stuff that takes silver and the funding of the wars on both sides that we're constantly seeing for years and years and years. He needs silver. And his whole thesis is that it's the military industrial complex that is behind the suppression of silver. Okay, let's put that aside. True or not? I'm not legitimizing it other than saying
just look at the
article. But here's the thing. If you Google how much silver is in a Tomahawk cruise missile,
500 ounces.
500 ounces, right. So why is the Silver Institute ignoring the military component? And even with that, they cite that it's the biggest industrial demand ever for silver, ever in history, and yet they don't talk about the military side of it. I find it to be not very credible, I guess. And if you watch Bix's video, he goes back. In fact, I was on with him last night talking about not only did they revise last year's numbers, they've gone back and revised the last 5 or 6 years' numbers. So it's kind of like the information we get out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, bunch of bullshit, where they give us numbers and then revise it months later when everyone is not paying attention anymore. But the market reacts to the information that comes out
immediately.
And then yes. And the same thing here is here. But I do want to say that I think the world realizes how important silver is. I'm sorry for that noise. I think the world realizes how important silver is. And a lot of the countries, like India importing 60 million ounces in October, like China importing another 10 million ounces in October, like Turkey importing 26 million ounces year to date, and like mysteriously last Friday, almost 4 million ounces delivered off the ETFs around the globe. Where is it all going? Who's taking it? I think we're going to wake up one morning to see silver gap up way higher, because it was one thing to suppress gold and silver when no one wanted it and everyone was happy with dollars and dollar-based assets. That's not the case anymore. And you have half of the world standing for delivery. So what you have been doing, setting the table, telling people to buy silver all of these years, I believe it be life-changing. Bigger, bigger. I see it. Okay, I got it.
Okay. Phillips Baker, CEO of Hecla Mining, chairman of the Silver Institute, metal's most prominent industry, recently made a presentation at the LBMA in Spain. And he says it's silver's role in the transition to green. In a press release, he says, someone asks him whether we have enough silver to go green. Like, he replied in the affirmative, explaining, while the market is currently in structural deficit, above ground stocks will be mobilized to meet the demand. Then he goes in, the rest of the article talks about how it is not possible. Demand outstripped supply in 2022 by nearly 238 million ounces, possibly the most significant deficit on record. And then he goes into how the output fell versus the previous year, confirming what Hecla Mining said about difficulties miners face in bringing new production online. It's getting harder to find high-grade deposits, more difficult and expensive to develop and operate a mine. And then it just keeps going on and on. So why in the world would he say that we do when everything just contradicts that statement? And I was reading this like, it doesn't make sense. He says it's one little line, but the rest of what he's talking about just contradicts himself. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, it is. And when we're going into our third year of structural deficits in supply versus demand, this becomes a problem. And silver is found in nature in a form called epithermal, very near the surface, meaning the big deposits were found decades ago. So it's not like you're going to all of a sudden stumble across more silver, especially when the price has been held down for so long that it has really mothballed most exploration companies. It's too expensive and not lucrative enough for these companies to explore. So it has really put a curtail, I guess you could say, on future silver deposits, where only 35% of all the silver found came from companies that are looking for it. The rest is byproduct. So it's one of these deals where I think people have a hard time believing that we could actually be misdirected by authorities, that we could be misdirected to be thrown off the scent, off the trail.
I just wanted to mention this as well, guys, because these deals are still valid. I don't know for how much longer.
And the 1 ounce 2023 Silver Eagle at $4.99 over.
And how long is that gonna last for?
That one is only good through Friday night, like
Okay,
as late as possible Friday night. So on that one, when you send an email to info@BalanceFranklin, just put Silver Slayer cyber special, and we will reply back
cool,
to you.
cool. I get my own little deal. That's
Well,
cool.
and if they
Yeah,
want, you may want to tell people, whether it be now or in the description, how they're going to be able to reach out to you. And I
yeah. I
don't
was
care
gonna
if they reach
say,
out to
yeah,
you right now.
buy,
I'll
yeah,
make
buy.
myself available for you all weekend, and I'll have my staff available for you. So if anyone wants to place orders directly through you,
Yeah,
which I'm sure
yeah,
people do,
yeah,
that's cool, and we'll help you get those processed,
yeah,
because it's also, it's important for you to see how this works. So we're happy
yeah. And I want to
happy to
talk to
get
you
that
guys.
rolling.
Yeah, I want to talk to, you guys, especially if you guys are willing to, purchase through us, that means a lot. So yeah, buy.slayer@gmail.com. Buy.slayer@gmail.com. We have the 1 ounce silver Britannias 2023, 269 over spot, minimum 50, 10th ounce gold eagles, 5 point minimum, $32 over melt, 5 ounce Nordic bars, minimum of 10, $1.99 over spot. My personal favorite, I love 10 ounce bars. And it's only a 4 bar minimum. And it's $1.49 over spot. So
Also the Britannias, that's the cheapest, as cheap as I've ever sold them for in my whole career. Even when prices
I
were
love
bear
Britannias.
market, 2017, 16, 15, you never get them for under 269 ever, never, ever. So that's as good of a price as I've ever sold them for in my career. And whatever, everything's on sale right now. It doesn't make sense. It will go down to me as the biggest mystery in my career, why so few people see what's coming. And there's
Yeah.
an old saying, you can't get out of the way of what you don't see coming. So your people will be firmly out of the way and positioned nicely. So
Yeah.
a lot of our
That's
friends
awesome.
and families won't be, but